that with the Mahayuti, getting the maximum number of seats is what it seems in all the exit polls so far, Vasudha?
Absolutely, and in Jharkhand, it's only Access My India, which is giving India Bloc the edge here, and Dainik Bhaskar, Metri's People's Pulse and Times Now, JVC actually saying that it's the NDA that could be, in a comfortable position to form the government in Jharkhand.
Right, if we take a look at Access My India, it's giving NDA around 25 seats, whereas all the other exit polls are giving for Jharkhand around 37 to 40, 42 to 47, and it's giving the India Bloc 53 seats. So that's the only one that's going the other way. There, it's on your screens there. You can see Access My India. It's the only one that's giving a different picture of Jharkhand compared to what the other exit polls are saying. But as we said, lots of health warnings when it comes to exit polls. They've not proven to be the most reliable in recent years, and the track record one saw in the Haryana elections as well. Well, let's go across to the panelists who are here with us, and we have Dr. Badri Narayan also there with us, and we were talking about what the impact of this election would be on the parties in Maharashtra, on both the Shiv Senas, both the NCPs, and also the impact it's going to have on the larger national picture.
I think if this election goes in the direction suggested by this exit poll, then it will prove that BJP strategies and politics is in right direction. And they are going to prove this is going to make stronger their claim for future performance in the elections, especially for the next parliamentary election too, because the strategy of the Congress and others, which was based on this politics of fear, which was around the constitution, around the reservation, is not working. It worked at some time. And secondly, sympathy votes, which was cultivated by this Mahavikas Aghadi, has faded now. And thirdly, this election, so it will also establish that Shiv Sena, Eknath Shinde with BJP is the viable alternative, is a claim, is going to prove their claim for the Bala Sahab legacy and Hindutva politics.
Right.
So Hindutva claim is also going to be established by this election if it is going to in this direction. And since these 3 months, they learned a lot, this MBA learned a lot from the last defeat which they got in parliamentary election. So they did many popular policies they brought to appease middle class, to women, so developmental politics is also going to establish that developmental politics is going to win the elections of the coming days.
Right.
Not this kind of politics of hope and politics of fear. Okay. Politics of hope is generating by this kind of developmental politics, and politics of fear by this kind of danger politics. So this kind of strategy is going to fail. If this election goes in this direction, I think this kind of message will emerge and the claim will be established by this kind of politics.
Charupragya, I wanted to ask you, has the BJP cracked actually what really went wrong with 2024 elections, coordination with the RSS, because that seems to be there. And more importantly, the welfare thing, the Prime Minister has been known to have been very critical of freebies, but, in every state the party has followed this template of income support to women, which also in some ways could be qualified as freebies by a section of people. Do you think that's a corrective measure that the BJP has consciously taken after 2024 setback?
So please allow me to correct you. Whatever is being called as a setback for Bharatiya Janata Party is actually not one. We have made the government in 2024 again, and we have done it with a very clear mandate of the people. Those who are still talking about that election actually need to open their eyes and look around them. This is history that was created with the same Prime Minister being sworn in after an election for the 3rd time in a row. In fact, forget India, it has not even happened in any other major democratic country country since World War II. So I don't know why 2024 is being called a setback again and again. But moving on from there, there is a very fine line between freebies and welfare schemes. And India is a welfare state. We need to be looking after our people. We need to make sure that the poorest of the poor are uplifted from the state that they are living in, and we are able to make lives better for them. And I gave an example of that when I listed out the basics that our party is focusing on. 25 crore people out of poverty in just a couple of years. So that's a huge achievement. So we have to also look at the coffers of a state, and that is where the difference lies. When you set out a budget, when you set out to make promises during elections, it cannot be made up in the air. It cannot be made in such a way that, okay, let me promise the sun and the moon and the stars right now, but God forbid if I actually come into power, I have no idea how I'm going to fulfill those promises. And Congress has shown that kind of irresponsible behavior in Karnataka, in Himachal Pradesh, when they were in power in Rajasthan. They believe in continuous borrowing from the centre.
Unfortunately, no one from the Congress has joined, our
they make all
discussion.
kind of tall promises.
All right, Dr. Seema Malik, if these numbers hold what we're seeing from the exit polls, and it is another Mahayuti government, what would it mean for the NCP now? And again, I know you'll say that this is not going to hold, but really a time of reckoning for the NCP under Sharad Pawar.
See, ma'am, these are the exit polls only, so don't believe them so much. We have seen what happened in Haryana, and these are the numbers only, and we don't have to believe on them. And basically, you see the hypocrisy of the I think BJP. They used to talk about the welfare scheme. They have given the word revdiyan, and they used to criticize these things. Now they are playing on them only, I think. Whether it is Ladli Behna Yojana or something. So I think this is very this thing, what they talk and what they do. And see, we also know, and you see the financial status of the Maharashtra. They have got a 8.5 lakh crore of the loan, and they have got around 2 crores of fiscal deficit. Their DTP contribution has decreased. It is from 15.1 to 13 point something, and their per capita income of the
so ma'am, you have also, at least MBA also promised the same things, actually, enhanced a lot of these promises. If your alliance actually comes to power, there'll be questions asked of you as well, right? So, I mean, we're completely running out of time. We also have Sanjay Seth, who is a minister from Jharkhand, also an MP from there, MOS Defense, joining us. Thank you, Sanjay ji, हमसे बात करने के लिए. आज झारखंड की वोटिंग खत्म हो गई है. 2019 में बीजेपी को 25 सीटें मिली थी, और 2024 लोकसभा चुनाव में पार्टी जो है वो ट्राइबल सीटें जो है सारी हार गई थी. तो इस बार आपको क्यों लगता है कि बीजेपी अच्छा परफॉर्म करेगी झारखंड में?
देखो, आप इस बार परिवर्तन की लहर चल रही है. परिवर्तन इसलिए कि जेएमएम और कांग्रेस ने जो कहते हैं ना, अपने वायदे पे एक भी वायदे पे खरे नहीं उतरे. एक वायदे पे इन्होंने मुंह मोड़ लिया. इन्होंने 5 साल पहले मुख्यमंत्री ने कहा था कि मैं पिताजी की कसम, शिबू सोरेन की कसम खा के कहता हूं कि 5 लाख नौकरी दूंगा हर साल, नहीं तो गद्दी पे लात मार दूंगा. ना नौकरी मिली और ना गद्दी पे लात मारा. इन्होंने ही कहा था कि 6-6 हजार रुपए बेरोजगारी भत्ता दूंगा, नहीं दे पाया, राजनीति संन्यास ले लूंगा. न राजनीति संन्यास लिया और न ही बेरोजगारी भत्ता दिया. इन्होंने ही कहा था कि 2-2 हजार रुपए चूल्हा खर्चा सभी झारखंड की बेटियों को देंगे. आज तक 2 रुपए भी नहीं दिया. इन्होंने कहा था कि बेटी की शादी में सोने का सिक्का हर बेटी की शादी में देंगे. सोना तो छोड़ दो, पीतल का भी सिक्का नहीं दिया. इतनी वादा खिलाफी वाली सरकार, इतना हसीन सपने, मुंगेरी लाल के हसीन सपने वाली दिखाने वाली सरकार, अब उसका काउंटडाउन नहीं, अब तो विदाई समारोह की डेट तय हो गई है. धूमधाम से 23 तारीख को इनकी विदाई होगी. और जो इन्होंने युवाओं के सपने जो चकनाचूर किए, और युवा जो है ना क्रोध में है. क्यों? उनके प्रश्न पत्र 25-25 लाख रुपए में बिके गए.
राइट.
उनको लाठियों से पीटा गया, उनपे मुकदमे दायर किए गए. आज युवा आक्रोश में है.
संजय जी, लेकिन हेमंत सोरेन जो हैं ट्राइबल नेता हैं, ट्राइबल मुख्यमंत्री हैं, उनका कहना ये है कि उनको जेल कर दिया गया था, वो एक साजिश थी और ट्राइबल आइडेंटिटी को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए, साधना कोड को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए भी जेएमएम के वायदे हैं। आपको नहीं लगता है कि इससे जो है ट्राइबल्स जो है अट्रैक्ट होंगे, और चूंकि एक ट्राइबल नेता को जेल किया था, क्या उसका सिंपैथी नहीं मिलेगा उनको?
अरे भाई, किस सपने में जी रहे हो, कहाँ जी रहे हो वे? क्या वही एक ट्राइबल है क्या? हमारे पास ट्राइबल नेताओं की फौज है, और छूट, आप किसी को लूट की छूट नहीं मिल सकती। आप भ्रष्टाचार करोगे, आप बालू को सोना बना दोगे, आप कोयला, आप खनिज, आप सेना की जमीन, आप आदिवासी जमीन लूटोगे, तो क्या आपको छोड़ दीजिए ना? कार्रवाई तो होगी। जो जो एजेंसियां हैं, चाहे ईडी है, इनकम टैक्स है, सीबीआई, कार्रवाई करेगी। और फिर आप विकास का पैसा, जनता का पैसा, एक पैसा भी अगर आप इतर करोगे, तो ये मोदी है, मोदी हिसाब लेगा और जनता को देगा। किसी को लूट की छूट नहीं है। और यही तड़पन इनको है कि भाई, अरे हमसे कौन कौन पूछेगा? भाई, हमसे क्यों पूछना चाहिए? अब बताओ, पंकज मिश्रा मुख्यमंत्री के प्रतिनिधि, 1500 करोड़ रुपए का खनिज बेच दिया। अभी उनका 2 साल बाद बेल हुआ है। अब बताओ, मुख्यमंत्री के प्रतिनिधि घपला करे। अब इनके एक भ्रष्टाचार की पूजा देश ने देखी थी, पूजा सिंघल, एक आईएएस अफसर थी, 20 करोड़ रुपए मिला, क्या छोड़ दिया जाए? भ्रष्टाचार का आलम देखा, इनके मंत्री हैं आलमगीर आलम, उनके 40 करोड़ रुपए उनके पीएस क्या मिला, छोड़ दिया जाए क्या? एक कांग्रेसी सांसद क्या 350 करोड़ रुपया, छोड़ दिया जाए क्या? अरे कानून अपना काम करेगा, और जनता की अदालत में हम सब आए हैं। जनता ने परिवर्तन पे मुहर लगा दी है, और 23 तारीख को आप देखना, प्रचंड बहुमत से भारतीय जनता पार्टी के नेतृत्व में सरकार बनेगी।
So that is Ministers Union MOS Sanjay Seth was speaking to us about the party's prospects in the assembly polls that got over today. And Kargi, Jharkhand exit polls are very interesting because Access My India, of course, is saying that India bloc could be forming the government. But of course, Dainik Bhaskar says it's a close fight and no one could be getting majority. PMark also gives majority to India bloc. So clearly that's, and of course, there are other...
Right, and Access My India is the only one going against what the others are predicting and giving the India bloc a majority there. So interesting to see that they've not released their Maharashtra exit polls, Vasudha, and I think they're holding it for the moment. Who knows? Maybe that's also going against what the.
So Jharkhand, 2 of them are saying India, 3 of them in NDA, and 1 of them saying that no one is going to get majority. That's what the situation is, right?
All right, Neerja ji, if your comments on what we saw on the campaign trail, all these slogans. Let's go back to Maharashtra of battenge to katenge, and ek hai to safe hai. What sort of, and the fact that within the BJP, you had leaders from Maharashtra actually saying that this is not something that we endorse here in Maharashtra.
The what jihad that Mr. Devendra Fadnavis talked about, I didn't find the kind of traction, that in
Either
the past.
way, did it really
Yeah,
matter?
in Maharashtra, I didn't find it to be the case, and I may be wrong. And it came towards the latter part of the campaign, in the hope that Hindutva card would work with the Marathas. And another thing is the Dalit that went wholesale to the MVA last time. Did the Dalit break a little bit this time? Because you see, last time it was the Arakshan khatam ho jayega, the reservations will end, the constitution will be changed, but that has not happened. So I particularly found
But
Dalit,
also because they didn't get the numbers, so if it had to happen, or of course the BJP saying it's going to happen.
Women were very excited by the Ladki Bahan Yojana. Dalit women more than other categories of women that one saw. And people talked about widespread corruption in Maharashtra. Now, an anti-incumbency was there. And still, if despite that the Mahayuti does well, of course there is the organizational heft of the BJP, which is always there. But it makes me wonder that when ideology is given a burial by all parties, and power is the driving force to bring them together, even in an alliance, then why should not the voter say to himself or herself and be that much more transactional? मुझे जितना अब मिल रहा है, why shouldn't I take it? If 7,500 what I'm getting, let me take it. Because I'm not going to get other things else, at other times, or get very little out of it.
Transactional to what level? We've seen the cash, controversy also denied by the BJP, or this Bitcoin cryptocurrency scam as well. And
let me ask Charu Pragya. Charu, batenge to katenge, ek hai to safe hai. Many of these slogans have been called as divisive, discriminatory, exclusionary, communal by the opposition. Section of voters might actually feel that, and they may actually say that this mobilized the minorities more than mobilizing your own voters. Do you see a threat of that happening this time?
I was actually thinking, how is it that these slogans didn't come up in this debate? Let me tell you something. A call for unity can never be looked upon as anything divisive. And the opposition will do well to remember that. It's a very simple thing. India needs to remain united in these troublesome times. And every single person who is a well-wisher of the country is going to agree with the slogan. The only ones who don't agree with the slogan are the ones who look for their personal benefit over that of a community, a society, or a country. And we have seen it time and time again from our childhood till date. वो पुरानी जो कहावतें होती हैं, when you make a fist, it's far stronger than just a single finger. The British used to say, united we stand. How is it that all those statements were never looked upon as divisive, and something as solid and as simple as this is called divisive?
All right, well, that brings us to the end really of our program. And once again, Vasudha, let's take the viewers through the exit polls. And I'd like to thank all the panelists who joined us and analysts. And we'll have to, meet again on the 23rd now to see, what really is on the minds of the voters. But yes, Vasudha, if we go through all these exit polls that have come so far, and again, all the health warnings and a bucket of salt with that. But take a look at those numbers. Dainik Bhaskar, Lok Shahi, Marathi, they're all giving in Maharashtra the higher number of seats to the Mahayuti and lower to the MVA according to these exit polls. 4
to 5 of them giving it to Mahayuti, but the Jharkhand scene is completely different, with most of them actually saying that it's actually I think both of the, even Stevens, right? Like, there are at least 2 of them saying Jharkhand, and 2 of them saying it could be BJP, and 1 of them saying that nobody would get a majority.
That's right. So those are the exit polls, as you can see there, and this is what we do after elections are over. Talk more and analyze all the numbers more, and we'll meet again on the 23rd for counting. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye from us.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Lord Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with. What matters worldwide is now in the palm of your hands. Get ready to seize the day and maximize your financial potential. Stay ahead of the curve with all you need to know on NDTV Profit.
Listen to the voices of reason as they talk about corporate health and investing principles with me, Neeraj Shah, on my show, Talking Point.
Bro, what are you doing?
I'm trading FNOs.
So, have you made any money?
Oh, it's simple. If you think the market is moving upwards, just buy Nifty call option. But if you think the market could slide downwards,
simplifying futures and options trading.
Don't worry about the future.
We've got your options covered.
Futures and options strategy that will help you move with the tide.
An unmissable trade.
If you want to be in the money.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Wall Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow, the newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with. What matters worldwide is now in the palm of your hands. Get ready to seize the day and maximize your financial potential. Stay ahead of the curve with all you need to know on NDTV Profit.
Listen to the voices of reason as they talk about corporate health and investing principles with me, Neeraj Shah, on my show, Talking Point.
Bro, what are you doing?
I'm trading FNOs.
So, have you made any money?
Oh, it's simple. If you think the market is moving upwards, just buy Nifty call option. But if you think the market could slide downwards,
simplifying futures and options trading.
Don't worry about the future.
We've got your options covered.
Futures and options strategy that will help you move with the tide.
An unmissable trade.
If you want to be in the money.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Wall Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow, the newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with. What matters worldwide is now in the palm of your hands. Get ready to seize the day and maximize your financial potential. Stay ahead of the curve with all you need to know on NDTV Profit.
Listen to the voices of reason as they talk about corporate health and investing principles with me, Neeraj Shah, on my show, Talking Point.
Bro, what are you doing?
I'm trading FNOs.
So, have you made any money?
Oh, it's simple. If you think the market is moving upwards, just buy Nifty call option. But if you think the market could slide downwards,
Simplifying futures and options trading.
Don't worry about the future.
We've got your options covered.
Futures and options strategy that will help you move with the tide.
An unmissable trade.
If you want to be in the money.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Long Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered.
Welcome to this special show on NDTV Profit. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. Now, exit polls are fraught with danger. So while this show is to talk about the many exit polls which are out for the state elections of Jharkhand and Maharashtra, and we will go through it, we will give you the poll of polls. Remember, they come with a huge disclaimer. Exit polls have been proven wrong more than right for the last few major elections, starting from the Lok Sabha, Haryana polls, let me also count the US elections, and now Maharashtra and Jharkhand, so which is why we won't take the risk of saying that these are the final numbers. But this is the poll of poll numbers we have right now from all major polls. It's looking like the Mahayuti could get a majority in this election. But let's talk a bit about the election in Maharashtra. It's an election that has got even the most jaded and veteran political pundits floundering. It's a no-holds-barred, do-or-die battle in Maharashtra as one political drama after another unfolded over the past 5 years. Alliances changed shapes multiple times, actually very tough to track. Chief ministers were forced to resign and parties were splintered into many factions. Fresh from a surprise win in Haryana, the BJP is holding to retain power along with partners Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena and Ajit Pawar's NCP. Excited by the results of the Lok Sabha elections earlier this year, in which they won double the seats of the Mahayuti, the opposition alliance called the Mahavikas Aghadi in Maharashtra is banking on anti-incumbency and sympathy for the betrayal, as they call it, of Uddhav Thackeray and Sharad Pawar. So if you were a writer of a fictional story, you'd find it difficult to write this kind of a story, where there is uncle, nephew on one side, there is a complete split. The Shiv Sena is no longer with a Thackeray, they have a different faction. It's all sorts of drama going on. So which is why it's very difficult but very exciting to see what happens in Maharashtra. Difficult to predict. Let's talk a bit about Jharkhand. The Congress and the Hemant Soren-led Jharkhand Mukti Morcha are fighting to hold on to power. This after Hemant Soren went to jail for 5 months over an alleged land scam and was out on bail barely 4 months ago. The hot issue picked up by the NDA here is that of illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. A provocative advertisement by the BJP was ordered to be taken down by the Election Commission. So it's in a sense BJP versus opposition fight in both states, which will have some impact on how the centre's hold is also perceived. This is why this is important. And also look at the kind of issues that have been talked about. I think the other important thing to look at in these sets of elections is how freebies have become front and center. Now call it freebies, call it doles, call it whatever you may, but the fact is that telling voters that they will get cash handouts at a regular interval has become a huge push for every political party. Look at the latest poll of polls numbers that we're bringing you. So the Mahayuti or the NDA in Maharashtra could get 154 seats. Remember, 145 is the halfway mark. The Mahavikas Aghadi or the India Alliance could get 122. The others are 12. This come, of course, with their set of corrections that could take place. So, which means there is a case you could see a hung assembly as well. But as of now, the Mahayuti seems to have an edge. As far as Jharkhand is concerned, the UPA is pipped to get 38, the NDA 29, and others are pipped to get 4 from a total of 81 seats. The figure I'm seeing there is 39, but here it's 29. So we'll have to wait and see how that really pans out. But meanwhile, let's talk about what the big issues are in this election. Anand Mishra, political editor of The Frontline, with us on the show. Purnima Joshi is with us. She's the Delhi bureau chief of the Hindu Business Line. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Let's get the political view and the political pundit view first. Purnima, I'll come to you. As you're looking at what's happening in the Maharashtra elections, is it becoming now an issue or a fight for survival for key political leaders? At the end of this, by Saturday evening, we'll know what the future holds, for example, for an Uddhav Thackeray, a Sharad Pawar, an Eknath Shinde, an Ajit Pawar, even a Devendra Fadnavis. This is a crucial election for them on a personal level, isn't it?
Yeah, so, if they don't, this is the first election they're fighting after the parties have been, the first assembly election, that is, both Sharad Pawar and Uddhav Thackeray, after their parties have been split. So, Sharad Pawar, if you look at him, he's contesting 87 or so odd seats. And in this election, you see even his wife campaigning, his daughter campaigning, the entire family behind him, and he himself is addressing rallies across. So if you travel to Marathwada or Western Maharashtra, like I did, you see a different picture in a city like Pune, where the BJP is quite strong. But you step out. Even in a place like Baramati, where Ajit Pawar himself is contesting against the nephew, you see a major contest there. So I also saw a sort of a urban-rural divide in Maharashtra, where the urban issues are different from the rural areas, particularly in areas like Marathwada and Vidarbha, where you can sense the farm rural distress. There is a lot of anger I saw on the ground on issues like soya bean prices, which have fallen, and the procurement is not happening. And across 12 districts of Vidarbha and Marathwada, this is a very, very big issue. Then there have been a lot of lapses by the state government, which delayed crushing of the sugarcane season, because of which about 12 lakh workers who are engaged in sugarcane pressing. And I would have you know that these are workers largely from the community of Gopinath Munde and Pankaja Munde, who framed the sort of largely OBC vote bank of the BJP. They have migrated out of the state to Karnataka, where sugarcane pressing is actually happening right now. So these were cotton prices again was an issue. So these were issues in the rural areas. Whereas you see in urban pockets like Pune or even in Bombay, there's a lot of money, muscle, Hindutva, all of that.
Purnima, are you feeling confident from what your reporters are telling you, what you've seen on the ground, on whether there's a clear mandate that we'll see on the 23rd, or is it closer than people think?
One can never be sure about Maharashtra. I will not make a prediction about Maharashtra because it's a huge state, and I feel that all the 288 constituencies are being fought on different candidate muscle, different issues. You have these 5-6 regions. Bombay with its 36 seats has very different issues in each pocket. You have a constituency like Dharavi, where people are talking about the Adani redevelopment project and how it's going to impact. But if you go to a constituency like Kolaba, where the BJP seems quite happily placed, it's a different issue. So I will not make a prediction about Maharashtra.
That's wise. That's wise not to make a prediction about Maharashtra. And we'll refrain from making predictions, but we need to talk about why this is so important. And I want to welcome Ajay Bagga as well. We're looking at this today from the political point of view, from what this means for policy push as well, I would say. Because if politics of the country are not clear, if it gets very competitive, it does impact the kind of policy push you see from the center. And of course, markets are also watching this closely. Ajay, I suspect tomorrow morning, exit polls will be fighting for attention from, whether Putin is going to unleash a nuclear war. So unfortunately, we're right now at a very tough time. But just talking about the elections per se, how crucial is this for markets which have been completely sideways? And if there is a clear win from the Mahayuti, as the exit polls seem to be predicting, will it be seen as a positive in trade tomorrow? First of all, will these polls be taken seriously?
No, I think, Tamanna, your leaders in the editorial, they summed up everything. I didn't have much more to add. I think there are much more wiser people sitting on the panel than me. All I would say, these polls will have to be called on Saturday afternoon or late afternoon. We won't be able to get clarity. Assembly polls, the differences are very small. And with now 6 parties, 6 major parties in the alliance, plus you throw in a couple of others and independents, it's very difficult. I don't think any exit poll can have any accuracy. And then the hypothetical bias, when you have 65, 64% voting patterns, 2 or 3% of voters who are committed don't go and vote, can change the outcome. So I would say it's not a landslide. There is no trend per se. There is a trend against poor governance and people getting voted on one platform and then forming parties on another platform. But voters have become cynical in that sense. And especially Bombay, where I come from, we have seen infrastructure development just going on interminably with very little in terms of comfort coming to the population. And you have seen the very poor turnout in Bombay. That is very sad, but maybe it's reflective of people's disillusionment. And you had that a line already in your editorial. That's why I said I have very little.
No, Ajay, you are being modest as always. The kind of insights you bring is just, you have your finger on the pulse of what the markets are thinking. Just on low voter turnout, yes, once again, miserable voter turnout in Mumbai. I mean, I went out and voted. I hope most of our viewers from Bombay did as well. But the fact is that what really are Mumbai voters getting? And none better to speak on that than Shaina NC. Shaina NC in her first election. Shaina, I don't know what the outcome will be. Since we've known each other for so long, I obviously wish you the best for the 23rd as well. But she is the candidate from Mumbai Devi. And in the electoral battle, of course, been with politics for years. But Shaina, I want to first ask you, how was your experience as a candidate? I mean, of course, you are an astute political worker. You know your party and your area, but this time you're not just a voter. You're a candidate. How was that as a different experience?
So, Tamanna, I just want to briefly correct you. I fought my first election in 2004 from Bandra West with the Bharatiya Janata Party, and that time I was clearly a novice. I didn't know how to fight an election there. And I remember people rubbished me off and said that, oh, she's lost an election and she only knows how to wear saris and doesn't know how to fight an election. But that's a stereotypical notion that most people have in public life for women. Having said that, 20 years down, having fought Mumba Devi, which is probably the toughest constituency in Maharashtra, where you have 140,000 Muslim voters and 1 lakh Hindu voters. And obviously, I'd like to thank Honorable Prime Minister as well as Eknath Shinde ji, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, for giving me this opportunity and for letting Ladki Behan fight valiantly to ensure that the people of Mumba Devi have some respite and are given the opportunity to better their lives, better their infrastructure, and better the kind of performance. You had a 3-time MLA who has not done much for the constituency, and as a South Mumbaiker and as somebody who lives in Mumbai, I would only want to say that it's unfortunate that you have this kind of disparity where in so many parts of Mumbai, and especially South Mumbai.
No, one minute, China, I stand corrected. But you know, you were right, 2004, 20 years later, you're no longer a political novice. I don't think anyone will come and say Shaina NC only knows how to wear saris, though you do that beautifully. And you're right, it's a tough battle. Now, you mentioned Amin Patel, your contender, your biggest challenger is a 3-time MLA. Mumba Devi, your constituency, has a large Muslim population. Did you reach out at all to Muslim voters, or have you focused and concentrated? I'm asking because this batenge to katenge and all of this which was going on before the election, was this part of your campaign in Mumba Devi, Shaina?
So I reached out to every section of society, and let me please say that I don't believe in divisive politics. I believe in performing in politics. But having said that, my opposition only chose to do vote bank politics and, as we say, tushtikaran ki rajniti. But I'm not here to sit and comment on that. I reached out to every segment, every section. And yes, Chief Minister's Ladki Behna Yojana did help to a great extent, because out of the 2.5 crore women in Maharashtra who got 7,500 in their bank accounts, if you take a constituency like Mumba Devi, there are 40,000 Ladki Behnas, of which 15,000 are Muslim women. So they all have rallied for the entire process of being empowered, and not just empowered, with the opportunity to be in a better space than where they were. So I think that all sections of society have accepted me, and we will be able to pull off a historic victory on the 23rd.
You do, since I'm speaking to you as candidate, China, if you win, what will you do to improve traffic jams, water woes, and some basic infra issues in your constituency? What is the one big promise you have for the people of Mumba Devi?
So I want to just say 3 things. One, in 15 years, there has really been no kind of development. And why do I say this, Tamanna? Not just to critique, but there has been no cluster redevelopment other than the SBUT, which is a project of the Boras in the area. If you take Kamatipura as an area, people are packed as sardines. There is no place for them to live, no place for them to have any amenities. The one hospital in the 10th lane of Kamatipura was even shut down, which was a maternity ward. The first lane, they had an eye hospital, that's also closed down. So there's been no development at all, like no new hospital, school, library, open space to dur ki baat, because there is no open space. And if you look at the cluster redevelopment that is required for a place like Kamatipura, even the proposals haven't even been submitted in 15 years. You have the same story at BIT Chaul, same story at Umar Khadi, same story at Kumbharwada. And the sad part is people have just voted for the Congress based on a community and a vote bank that stays downtrodden and has never been empowered. So whether it's the Muslims or the Dalits, they have only been viewed for their facilitating of votes. So I choose to fight all of this. When we talk about women, I feel so sad when I went today to the polling booths in Dongri and Bindi Bazaar, where women don't even have the basic facility of clean water. There's sewage water all over the place. There's filth all over the place. There's no kind of hygiene, no parking place because there's so many traffic issues and there's so much illegal construction. How did this come up in the first place? This only happened with the insulation of the MLA, and the MLA who chose to
you
have
will change,
one over one.
China, what is the one big thing you will change? And do you think that this election is going to have a far-reaching impact on a lot of political leaders in the state of Maharashtra?
Most definitely, because I believe that, you can't go piecemeal here. It has to be a whole blueprint. That whole blueprint has to be mapped very particularly and very cleverly, where each area is given the kind of indication of what needs to happen by technocrats, bureaucrats, and city planners, because everything is a mess. So you need to start from zero and work upwards. If you ask me for women, it's clearly healthcare and education, because even for our Muslim sisters who really don't understand how they're being taken for a ride, they only vote on the basis of community and calm, as we call it. I want them to vote on the basis of calm instead. So no calm only.
Okay, calm only, says China NC. We'll wait and see. I mean, it's just amazing what candidates say. Then the question is what they really do. But having said that, China, looking forward to what happens on the 23rd. And of course, best of luck to you and all of the candidates there. So China NC on a Shiv Sena ticket from the Mahayuti in Mumbai Devi, and it's an interesting choice of candidate in a Muslim-dominated seat where Amin Patel from the Congress has won the last 3 assembly elections. And I think that's one point I want to come to as well. Let me come to Mr. Mishra on this. Candidate choice. Anand Mishra, at the end of the day, while we tend to look at elections and then the outcome in very broad brush terms, as journalists, we're always hunting for the headline. For those who are fighting elections, it is about every seat, every candidate, and the dynamic of that election. Looking at it from that context, who do you think has done a better job of candidate selection, the Mahayuti or the MVA?
Tamanna, in fact, you see the Maharashtra elections this time has all the ingredients of a Bollywood potwala. So the kind of things that are happening here, this will determine the course of future politics of a number of senior leaders, top leaders. And if you go at the level of grassroots, in fact, the Maharashtra election is a multi-strand election. It's not one election. In a way, it is really a Maha election where things are really being fought at the grassroots. So I believe that this Mahayuti leaders, BJP-led Mahayuti has started preparation well in advance, and there was kind of a more cohesion and more discipline in political decision making at their level. So they will have an advantage of it. Apart from this, I was just hearing to Shaina, and she was talking about the women leadership issue. So I believe that Maharashtra election will once again attest to this power of women leadership. Like we had seen in Madhya Pradesh, Lali Bahana Yojana, the kind of results it delivered to Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Or you can see its replay in Jharkhand, Maiya Saman Yojana, coming to the aid of Hemant Soren despite some problems there, or despite a very polarized campaign by the BJP. Similarly, Ladki Bahin Yojana will have its impact in Maharashtra, there is no doubt about that. And mind it, in Maharashtra, a lot of regional strong leaders are there. There is no pan-Maharashtra leader right now. If you Mr. Sharad Pawar, who is aging, and there is a family fight in NCP backyard, so all the parties split into two. But I think this election will be different from other elections in this one aspect, that there is no single state strand. Lot of small leaders in different places. Nana Patole is powerful in one particular area.
Yeah.
Eknath Shinde has some area of influence. Then Mr. Devendra Fadnavis.
I agree. They all have their strongholds. They all have their strongholds, which is why it's been a tough state for the BJP to crack despite being the single largest party in the last 2 assembly elections. It has been tough. Feroz Aziz also with us this evening. Feroz, thank you so much for joining us, and great to have you here, because you know what we're trying to do is also getting a sense of how markets are looking at it, how Mumbaikars of all types are looking at it. I mean, you're also a citizen of this city, and you also, I'm sure, have expectations from whichever the next government is. But for markets, is Maharashtra elections going to be a big boost if the poll predictions right now are correct? Will it be a negative if they're not, or is it a non-story in that sense when we're already through so much turmoil?
Tamanna, good evening, and I think from a capital market standpoint, I would say this will be a non-event. If you look at the last 4 Maharashtra elections, so I generally reflect on data to see the odds of something happening and being an event. If you look at the last 4 Maharashtra assembly elections and its results, the markets have hardly moved. There were 2 of those dates, which is 2004 and 2009, 2014 and 2019. Now we are sitting on the 5th one in this century. You've seen that the result counting day has been a non-working day for 2 times, and 2 times it's been a working day. So subsequent movement, the movement in the market maximum has been 1.3%, which is almost business as usual. The reason why Maharashtra assembly elections have not been a very important capital market event is because of they being subsequent to the general election. Most often than not, these assembly elections have happened in October, November of the year, where general election has just passed by, like this year as well. The counting of the general elections happened on 4th of June. So that's one reason why it has been a non-event. Now, if you look at the 3rd December...
Feroz, having said that, the reason I'm asking, the reason you and Ajay are here today, because look at what has happened in the markets post-polls with both the general elections and Haryana. And then what happened on counting day? The wild swings have been traumatic for anyone in the markets for sure. So, I mean, I don't know. When you're saying this is a non-event, do you really think we're going to be seeing no impact? I'm not very sure, Feroz.
No, Tamanna, see, there is no impact, by which I mean, see, when you look at the volatility post-COVID, which in Nifty has seen, in volatility percentage terms, sorry, pardon me that I'm getting technical, 18.5% is the standard deviation Nifty has expressed, which implies a 0.9% average movement per day. So if there is a 1.3% movement on a 0.9 base, I would say that's why it's not a significant event, point 1. Point 2, of course, the general election market swung on exit polls. Exit polls took the market up, and the actual results brought it back down because the FII short positions were very, very extreme in the index futures. It was almost 88% a day before, which was 4th June preceding periods. So there were extreme speculation on a negative sentiment from the index futures side on the FII. So there was a lot of shorted leverage, which resulted in the volatility when FIIs got caught a little off guard on the exit polls. You're absolutely right. Anything could happen in capital markets.
Yeah.
I was just relying on the data.
Okay. So, yeah, anything can happen in the long term. Everything becomes, even Stevens when it comes to capital markets. But I guess this is going to be, I would say maybe a bigger issue on the 25th for the capital markets rather than tomorrow, because exit polls have been sidelined in that sense. No one's really taking them too seriously. Tejas Mehta, glad to have you on, even though it's towards the fag end of the show. But a quick word from you. If we keep exit polls to a side, because really one doesn't know. Right now they're showing that the Mahayuti is ahead. For Maharashtra and for the NDA, what would it mean if they did indeed come back with clear terms in a state where so much has happened in the last 5 years?
I mean, once again, they must thank Rahul Gandhi. This was one election where he didn't have to take onus for anything, actually. There was Sharad Pawar there was Uddhav Thackeray, who had more stakes than the Congress ever had. But where did you see the family, the leaders of the Congress itself? So I think this is the entirely missed opportunity, because if you look at the data coming out at this point, as far as the polls are concerned, the BJP has done better than what it did in the Lok Sabha elections as far as Vidarbha is concerned, where you have rural distress, where you have agricultural distress, where they are asking for more MSP for soya bean and many other issues. the BJP has not been able to do as well in Marathwada as far as the polls, exit polls are concerned, but that was probably expected in a sense. But I mean, think of it, if Rahul Gandhi and the entire team was right there, I mean, every day, then, I mean, they would have actually, this was an easy election to win in that sense compared to many other. I mean, Haryana was also easy. But I think
that this election is not going to be won and lost on Rahul Gandhi. This is about Maharashtra's strongmen. This is about the Pawars. This is about the Thakres. This is about Devendra Fadnavis.
I think the Ladki Behna scheme, I think we underestimate the power of it, and we should carefully look at what, in fact, all political parties just now are looking at how women have come out to vote. They want to find out, have more come out or less come out. That is going to be a key factor.
No, I think the trends we've been seeing in the last few elections, women voters, cash schemes focused on women voters, and then also an understanding of economically for some part of the populace, it's been very tough, and these cash schemes have become important. That's also, I would say, a statement of what is happening in our economy right now. But I have run out of time. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on this show. We'll wait and see, of course, what happens with the election results. But I hope the show has given you a sense of how important the Maharashtra and, of course, Jharkhand polls are. But as we wrap up, just to play out for you, because at the end of the day, it's an election which is happening in Mumbai and Bollywood comes out to vote. Hear what they had to say.
Well, I think let's forget the issues, and right now it's voting day and it's your birthright. You have to come and vote. So please vote, and if you haven't, it's open till, especially the Paliyal place is open till 8 p.m. So please come and cast your vote. Thank you. ये आपका फर्ज है to vote. अगर आपने अभी तक वोट नहीं किया है तो प्लीज आइए. जो फैसिलिटी है पालियल में, this is open till 8 बजे तक खुला है. So please come and cast your vote.
Thank you. Thank you. See you. Bye.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter. The Long Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with. What matters worldwide is now in the palm of your hands. Get ready to seize the day and maximize your financial potential. Stay ahead of the curve.
The Make in India campaign was launched in 2014. Now, 10 years later, the focus of this campaign has now shifted to improving quality standards. The Prime Minister's Vocal for Local initiative too has emphasized maximum promotion for Made in India products. And it is on the back of this that a consortium of about 7 leading companies, including Tata Sons, TVS Motor, Sun Pharma, as well as Bosch, have come together to launch a non-profit. And this non-profit is called the Indian Foundation for Quality Management. This organization will work with entrepreneurs across sectors to improve quality standards and help them set best practices in terms of processes in their respective industries. And with me now is the leading light of this initiative, Mr. Soumitra Bhattacharya. He is
the CEO of the Indian Foundation for Quality Management, and he's also the chairman of Bosch. Mr. Bhattacharya, thank you so much for speaking with NDTV Profit. My first question to you, can you tell us what kind of mentorship you offer through the foundation, and what kind of quality standards are you looking to set?
So both these questions are very insightful. Thank you for having IFQM on the show and me on the show. If I look at, first of all, the standards that we offer, what we are doing is we have 8 founder governing council members, and all these companies are, in a way, I could say, in their own industries, role models. So they've come together and said the agenda is a nation first agenda and industry next, nothing to do with their companies. And what we are doing the first year, and we are just 1 year old, born on 6th of September 23, we are first ensuring that we bring about this practice within the governing council, actually showing how role model companies work. And then now we have just opened up our membership, where we are trying to say that for big industry, it's important to not only look at themselves critically, but also to give back. The MSMEs, or middle and small medium enterprises,
yes,
that's really today, relatively speaking, other than a few shining examples, the weakest link in the chain. And cluster formation means when you take a set of MSMEs together, put a counselor in place who shows them the mirror, walks the journey with them, and improves quality standards, and they start sharing with each other, and there is a focus on different topics as we go along this journey. And over a year, 2 and 3, you suddenly see that these clusters have gone to a different level altogether.
When you speak about export capability and global competitiveness, quality standards is the elephant in the room. Are you taking anything from international quality standards textbooks, if you want to call it that, from the Japanese, who are very well known for their quality? Are you taking bits and pieces from here and there and putting together a handbook, or how does it work? Because every sector is unique, right?
True. So what we've decided as at the first phase in IFQM, we are focusing on 2 countries. Yeah, we are focusing on Japan, as you rightly said. JUICE, which is the Japanese Union for Scientific Engineers, we already have a very firm MOU. In fact, 3 senior members of JUICE recently attended our well-attended symposium on 15th and 16th of October. And they talked about their tie-up with IFQM. We are also doing that with Germany. Later, we will focus on countries like US, maybe Korea. But right now, we see clearly, if you take the example of both these countries, Japan and Germany were pushed against the wall. Germany in the case of Second World War, and Japan in the 60s and 70s. And then they produced a series of, going through hard processes to get their industry up and running. Now in India, we have relatively a better situation. There's a big domestic market. We, right now, our export, when we look at global trade, is not very high. And we still have brilliant examples, but many of them are shining dots and not across the value chain. So in summary, yes, we are looking at role models like these countries who've done it the hard way. We are looking at our role models, and we are trying to also focus on the weaker, relatively weaker, chinks in the chain, and trying to upgrade them through the counseling and the assessment mode.
What would your foundation be able to do for someone who is, let's say, a young entrepreneur, or someone fresh out of college, maybe business school, someone who wants to set something up,
right,
who has a dream?
Yeah.
How can your foundation help?
Yeah. You see, most of these, including, today you have a lot of youngsters either doing startups or getting into what I said as MSME. And our focus on IFQM as a catalytic organization, we call ourselves industry-led, and IFQM being a catalyst. our focus is across all sectors. It's not just the manufacturing sector. We are focusing on manufacturing and services as well. Yeah. Later we'll be tackling software, fintech, etc., etc. Hospitality. So we are looking at also youngsters, and they will fall into the cluster that I talked about. And once they get exposure to bigger companies, to better practices, through our very experienced counselors, and right now we already have on board about 15 counselors and assessors, and we will grow that pool to about 50. And when they go, and they are equipped with a lot of skills, experiences, they would be able to spread best practices, and most importantly, clusters give you a force multiplier.
And where do B schools, for example, or educational institutions come into it? Are you planning to catch them young and teach them quality?
I think that's a brilliant question you've asked. If you put it, you'll see always amongst students who aspire, in the earlier days and even now, saying, I'll do an MBA and after my engineering. So our focus is, if you want to be a business leader, you need to know the big Q and the small q. The small q stands, and it's a very important Q, for the processes, for running a company, for ensuring that your shop floor is working, your source, make, deliver. And the big Q stands for policy deployment, business strategy, goal setting, R&D, customer relations management, I could go on. So the whole business is covered by the big Q and the small q. On top of this, we put a layer called leadership transformation. If you don't have leadership transformation, you can't do the big Q and the small q. And right on top is leadership commitment. Now this journey is a tough journey, but it's a very rewarding journey. So we are very keen, and we've just started our process to get industry academia connect, or if I may put it the other way, to gel with the younger generation, AI, academia industry connect. Yeah, and that's AI for you. And we are going to be connecting, and we've just started that process. And we would be very, very keen, and you will see in FY 25-26, we will announce about the possibilities of electives on quality management, where youngsters can learn, not just in the classroom, but can have internships with many of our governing council members, our other members, and choose that combination along with their engineering or whichever area they're doing, for them to be able to actually enter business, and I would even call it, partially, I can't say fully, hit the ground running.
The question automatically arises that, we have such big names in the industry. How on earth are, the regular common people, the MSMEs, like you said, which are very small industries, how are they going to connect with you? How are they going to learn from you? So what's the plan as far as that is concerned?
If you look, already they are in different industries. Second, if you look at just though they are not doing it for themselves, even these big industries have a lot of tier 1 and tier 2 connected with them. Don't forget that. And by the way, we are opening up now for membership after our symposium. A lot of people have shown interest. They all have their tier 1s, tier 2s. Even if they are in tier 1, they have the tier 2s and tier 3s. And don't forget, in India, as you progressively go down the tiers, the gap, the delta gap, actually increases not in arithmetic progression, but in geometric progression.
And by delta gap, you mean?
So let me give you an example. Let's take auto OEM, industry which I come from. And let's take the tier 1. Now, automotive industry already is very mature. That means the others have to catch up. Now, when you look at the tier 1, you have some, or quite a few, or even many who are mature. But there are some, and not quite a few, not mature. But when you go to tier 2, the gap of maturity, and I'm not talking of improving, but not improving, actually increases. And when you go to tier 3, but the automotive industry is dependent on tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3.
Right.
So it's only in the interest of the industry, the OEMs, the tier 1s, that we improve the tier 2s and the tier 3s. Now this applies maybe equal to or in a bigger way for other industries. So when you get a cluster going, it's a cultural change. The CEO, who is most likely the founder of that company, most likely in his 50s and 60s, or as you rightly said, many who will be in their 20s who they join, they don't have the wherewithal of big organizations. You know, the whole machinery, the processes, the bandwidth, the absorption of technology, R&D, yeah, so many things. Now, the fastest way to learn is when you create mentorship. That's what we want to do through our counselors. Fastest way to learn is to make groups and allow them to become very transparent and start, where am I? And then the journey happens. Yeah? And I end by saying, the countries that we talked, the MSMEs, the delta gap between them and the OEMs are either very low or sometimes not there.
Wow.
I'll give you a data point. The biggest exports coming out of Germany is from the MSMEs, what they call it the Mittelstand.
Let's take a sort of step back and look at it from a wider view. Economies around the world are slowing down.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people are of the opinion that the US economy itself is slowing down. We will, of course, have more information about it in the coming months. Japan is slowing down. China is struggling to bring itself back. Europe has slowed down. So in the midst of all of this, the Indian economy is growing. Some people do say it may be showing signs of slowing down. But at this juncture, we have a whole huge generation of youngsters who are graduating, who are looking for jobs. Where does this sit with this?
I think that's a very, very good question, and it's a very deep and wide question. So I'll just try to answer a part of it. So let's take some data points here. We want to be in Viksit Bharat 2047, which our Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned, and we spoke about it in our symposium, yeah? A 30 trillion economy and a developed nation. And by developed nation, the government has given a ballpark number of about $18,000 per capita. Now, where are we today? We are at about 2,700, and we are short of 4 trillion. And to go to 30 trillion, but more importantly, not just GDP, but GDP per capita. If we want to improve that to be a developed nation, there is tons of not just manufacturing and service, but that tons of manufacturing, tons of service that we have to deliver as output has to come with global quality. You can't have India, which is time to time or in parts giving it. The whole supply chain of India needs to give it. That's one. Second, unlike the rest of the world, and especially because of geopolitical situations, in India, where we have a huge domestic market, we have got an opportunity. And to grab this opportunity, people will still expect export capability, globally competitive, innovative, and India's affordability. Now, how do you do that? It's not a quick fix. Japan and Germany took 30 years. We in IFQM guesstimate that, the fastest we can do, but with a steady, solid foundation, is 20 years. But somewhere we have to start together. So the whole idea of IFQM was, can we collaborate with all the quality institutes? Can we collaborate with the government? Can this be industry-led? Because who knows it better than industry? Can we do it with an agenda, without an agenda, for the big Q and the small q, and create force multipliers? So this is the whole idea. And when we do it, and if we do it, believe me, this will be the biggest meet into Viksit Bharat.
Since you're part of the mobility industry, you've been watching the stock markets and the earnings that have been posted in the last couple of quarters. What is your takeaway from this? Because we've seen that commercial vehicle sales have dropped. Two-wheelers are doing okay. but for passenger vehicles, four-wheelers, are doing okay only if there are deep discounts. This is my takeaway. Tell me if I'm right or wrong, and tell me what you see for the future.
Yeah. So if you look at mobility, and if you look at what was earlier as automotive, the fundamental difference is today cars have a lot of software. In fact, in the future, the software will sit on top of the hardware. So that's why it's called SDV, Software Defined Vehicles. So that's a fundamental shift on, earlier we used to call it metal bashing to actually software defined vehicles. Now that's of course the extremes. But if you look at India, people like to buy cars with a lot of electronics, infotainment, interconnectivity, internet, and so on and so forth. Yeah? Second, you will notice that, and it's come out in the papers recently, that the sub 10 lakh car, which was the highest selling, is no longer the highest selling segment. So people have moved up the value chain and gone beyond the 10 lakh and are wanting to buy, I would say, more premium products, even more than their affordability, through EMIs, etc., etc. Then you'll notice SUVs have played a very important role as compared to a normal sedan. Yeah? So these are fundamental shifts. And of course, the biggest joker in the card pack is the story, where will EV go? So you'll always have the plus and the minus. My guesstimate is that, earlier people were saying by 2030, 50% of the cars will be EV, but my guesstimate, it won't be more than 20%. Yeah, it could be 20%, 22%, 25% maybe, but not more than. Because, first of all, we are already in 25. We are knocking on the doors of 25. So we're talking 5 years from today. Where is EV as a percentage of the total production of cars we make? Even if you want to make 20-25%, you'll have to have a 10x growth rate. Don't forget that. Number one, on the total production. And India makes, India's heading towards 5 million cars. And on that, if you want to go 25%, you're talking of 1.25 million EVs. It's not a joke. So basically that 50% is out. ICE will be there for a longer. Now within ICE, as an internal combustion engine, you have the petrol, you have the diesel, you have the the hybrid, the strong hybrid, yeah? And then within BEV, you have the BEV, the battery electric vehicle, or the plug-in hybrid, you can also say, or the plug-in electric. So all these combinations which come in, and now a second joker has come, CNG, yeah? So you have an array of things where ICE will continue to dominate. And don't forget the technology in which ICE is with BS6, you're actually having very small emissions coming out. Right. Our big challenge is the old part of the park of vehicles. So if I make a long story short, because one can go on and on, the mobility business in India is strong. It's undergoing fundamental changes which had never been seen. There will be ups and downs. Pundits can predict, but their predictions will turn and change, which happened, for example, with EVs, and we'll have to go with the flow. You talked about heavy commercial vehicles, and I'd like to just give one word. Many of us compare HCV with the numbers pre-COVID, which had touched a peak of 480,000. And they say, oh, we have not touched that peak. But we need to look at the fundamental parameters, and because they are not apples, they are apples and oranges.
Okay.
Today, the haulage compared to the 2019-20 numbers is totally different. So you can't compare those vehicles. Second, those days, if you remember, we had the toll, all states. There was approximately 2,200 toll gates across all states and districts. That was taken away. We have the FASTag, which was not there, and we have newer and bigger national highways. So actually, whenever we look at a number, we just can't compare a number. We should look at different parameters and always check whether they are apples to apples or apples to oranges.
My question is about, you were talking, I mean, it comes from what you just said about how skilling is something that India desperately needs.
Right.
And we have a government that's promoting a Skill India program. a lot of surveys have shown that our graduates are barely employable. Now, taking this into consideration, is there any kind of advice you would like to give youngsters who are fresh out of college in their first jobs? Do they need to get skilled? What do they need to do in order to get good jobs, to move forward in life, pick up quality standards and become, globally on par with global standards?
Yeah. So I'll give you 2-3 examples and stop with that, because again, this is a very deep question. First part, I would say, while in India we have put up a lot of skill institutes, really, and a lot of government, including government, private, take the Tata IAS, yeah, there's the Indian Skilling Center, and where Tatas have come and there's so many other companies who are doing it, and all companies are doing it in-house. I would say something in India that we can really look at, starting with a curriculum and the government, is strengthening, like the best countries in the world, example Europe, Germany, Japan, even US, vocational training. The type of vocational training these countries do, they become masters of the skill in which they do. Starting from carpentry to plumbing to electrician to electronics to everything, because those skilling goes right up the ladder. That's one. The second part, I would say, for youngsters is dirtying their hands. What I mean is more and more, if youngsters, while they're doing their education, and this requires a jugalbandi between the academia and industry, and this is something that IFQM will try to also bring into picture, is internships, yeah, in specific areas where they, when they pass out, they can actually hit the ground running, unlike presently, even with qualifications, they have to be in the bench for a year or maybe 2, where they get trained. And then, of course, the matter of graduates that you mentioned, my own submission would be, how can we, over time, the next 10, 15 years, do the Indian way, what some of the best developed countries have done? Bring vocational training the respect that it deserves. Pay accordingly. Allow people to move from that training to go right all the way up to PhDs, which many of these countries have regularly shown, and people have got into the boards. Maybe they started in vocational training, but they've gone into the boards. So are we not doing it? We are doing it. Can we do it more? Can we do it en masse? Can we put it into curriculums where 70% of our students get into this? Of course we can. For that we need to have dialogues, commitment, belief, and in my view that can help India in many ways.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhattacharya. As I promised you, this was the last question. But thank you so very much for speaking with NDTV Profit.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the long street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with. What matters worldwide is now in the palm of your hands. Get ready to seize the day and maximize your financial potential. Stay ahead of the curve with all you need to know on NDTV Profit.
listen to the voices of reason as they talk about corporate health and investing principles with me, Neeraj Shah, on my show, Talking Point.
Bro, what are you doing?
I'm trading FNOs.
So, have you made any money?
Well, it's simple. If you think the market is moving upwards, just buy Nifty call option. But if you think the market could slide downwards,
Simplifying futures and options trading.
Don't worry about the future.
We've got your options covered.
Futures and options strategy that will help you move with the tide.
An unmissable trade.
If you want to be in the money.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Wall Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
It's a tricky time for Indian markets. We're seeing a bit of a bounce back after over a week of weakness. But the question is, are we at an inflection point? We've had a fairly underwhelming second quarter of corporate results coming in. FIIs can't get to the exit door fast enough. And we still have to figure out what another 4 years of Mr. Trump as the US president means. In the middle of all of this, what is the outlook for markets? One of the clearest and I must say most candid voices with us today on NDTV Profit, Sameer Arora, founder and fund manager at Helios Capital. Sameer, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time. And is it really as confusing as I've made it out to be in the introduction?
Actually, it is a little bit confusing, but not as much, because in the end, you have to drill it down to a few things, and we will do that here. But generally, in big picture, equity markets do well and you buy them when they have corrected a lot. And generally, all markets move plus minus together. You can underperform another market, but normally unless some specific negatives have happened, the markets don't turn negative when everything else is positive in the rest of the world. So it's simple things which define in the end the views on a market as far as I'm concerned.
No, so let's drill down then to one big, I think, concern, in quotes and quotes, is how Indian companies have performed in the second quarter of this year. Now, some will say that first half is usually tough, second half will be better. Some are saying varied weather, etc., monsoon, elections. Are you buying it, Sameer? How are you seeing corporate performance?
So, Indian results have been quite bad. But they have been bad in 2 or 3 specific themes or sectors, and those have to be avoided. And we are not buying a correction or buying that their valuations have become okay in those sectors, because according to me, these things don't end in a quarter or two. So, for example, the 2 or 3 areas where there have been issues. Number one, in microfinance and small consumer loans and lending. And that has to be careful. And so you avoid that in future, at least means next 6 months, 9 months, or whatever. The second, which I have anyway never liked, which is the auto sector, where worldwide you can see that there is still confusion about even how much EV adoption, whether you should subsidize it, and also the fact that there is so much investments made and things like that. So you don't know whether whose EV will be better than his IC, and generally a lot of capex required to remain in place, which is just to be able to adapt to the new technology. And the third one, which also broadly we have never liked, is this idea that in India, the consumers are growing and middle class is growing, therefore they'll keep buying TV, fridge, and microwave ovens and air conditioners because if there were three or four producers or suppliers before, now there are 20 people wanting to do the same thing from all the retailers like Chroma and Reliance and all these guys wanting to do it, and then all the Koreans and Japanese and Chinese wanting to do it. And we also have this simple thumb rule: if there are not many big companies in the world in this sector, it's unlikely that in India there'll be some relatively big companies. So I don't know any big TV company in the world or any big fridge company in the world which anybody admires, looks at, or thinks of it as great return. So I don't want those things in India. These are my simple views on life. But IT is doing okay. Financials, otherwise, the private banks and all are doing okay. And these new platform time companies are doing okay. And in many of these, you are not really relying on end consumer growth. You are just relying on change of preference in the way you buy things. And therefore, those things can grow till you reach a point where the end growth also picks up. So there'll be more winners and more losers, but it doesn't mean that the market is bad, but it's not as straightforward as before.
Samir, Hira, on this side, this is an interesting take where you're saying that completely, right now it's the best time to avoid auto, best time to avoid consumption. Then how are you putting your bets right now in terms of the new age companies? You have the likes of the Nykas, you have the likes of Swiggy's, Zomato's, which have come at play, right? Do you think they are actually posing a big competition to your traditional general trade and modern trade companies?
So first thing is, I'm not saying avoid consumption of all kinds. I was only talking about this consumer durable kind stuff, where although there might be demand, the supply or new manufacturers, new this thing are also very, very high. And also, as I said, separately, I also like to see that in the same business that there are successful companies in the world, and I can imagine that, okay, this Indian fellow will do like that. For example, in the past, at one point, there was a company which was trying to sell gym memberships, what was Talwarkar or whatever it was called in those days. And it had the same characteristics. Oh, middle class is growing and people want to be fit. And I didn't buy it because I said, first, show me a big global gym company that has done well in life, because I don't want to be the first one discovering a theme which is so new that only India has it. Similarly, there was another company which is still there. We are selling timeshare and we are selling shared holiday homes. I said, first, show me a big global company which has done it. Because these things are not invented in India. And we know broadly these things haven't worked beyond a point. So I don't want them here. It's in that context I was saying that some parts of the consumer there are no successful companies in the world which are considered as top of their own market. So why in India we should do it? Now, coming to the platform companies, and here I mean only the Zomato, Swiggy, or maybe PB Fintech, or even if you want to call Paytm types. Here the thing is that you are not overly relying on end growth of consumers being 10-15% per annum or something. You're only saying that the way people are buying is different. So they are taking market share from another slower moving competitor. And therefore, we say that right now it is that preference of the customer which is giving us the growth. And over time, when that market share has stabilized between new and old, and whether you're buying online or you are taking delivery or you want to go in this pollution and buy it yourself, then we'll rely on the end consumer growth.
I mean, Samir, an interesting one that you just mentioned about Talwarkar is it making people stay fit. The companies become unfit altogether. So absolutely what you're saying. Yeah. But clearly, from the themes that we're looking at already right now, as you mentioned, you have some preferences coming in. What is the FI mood telling you currently? Because initially we were talking about FI money moving from India to China. Then we're talking about it's not China, probably it's the USA, right?
USA. Correct.
So how is that shift expected to happen from here now?
That shift also, big picture, must be somewhere near the end. So let's look at it. So there are, let's say, two kinds of investors, and I don't think there are three kinds. One would be a global investor who can invest in US can invest in India, China, etc. And then there might be a investor like basically who can invest, or generally his fund is an emerging market fund or an Asia Pacific fund or Asia Japan fund or something like that. So if you're a global investor, your normal current weight in US will be more than 60 to 65%, because that is, let's say, big picture, the MSCI weight for USA in the world. And India's weight will be, I guess, 1%. Or maybe 1.5%. I don't even think 1.5%. So if you just look at it like that, somebody is saying I have 60% already in USA and I have 1% in India. Oh, I must reduce because I want to increase my weight in US. So I'm making it 65.2% and reducing India to 0.8. Does it make any sense that beyond a point, this is not the trade? Because A, you have 33%, 34% in the rest of the world from where you can choose if India was otherwise doing well, which broadly I think it is still doing much better than other places other than US. And secondly, this move is for people who have these two things and who really think that 0.2% more is required in US. So by definition, this must be fast money kind of thing. Some money which is so focused on here and now. But even for this, the cost of this trade here onwards is more than 25%, which means in the last 1 month, say since October 1st, Indian market average stock that if these guys want to sell now may be down 10-15% or 10-12%. And in US, the stocks that they want to buy in this period are already up 10-12%. Or some big picture like that if you compare with the indices. So you have already a 25% difference because you now like US over India, if at all you like it to that extent. And therefore, from here, you should make another 20%. Looks very unrealistic to me. Therefore, I say plus minus a few weeks, this flow will finish. And it already seems to be reducing sharply from 4,000-5,000 crores a day to now maybe 2,000 crores. And let's see how it goes. But I think it'll end soon.
That's interesting, Samir. So you're saying in the next few weeks, maybe FII outflows, foreign investor outflows taper off completely. But when are the inflows coming?
Plus minus zero. Yeah, which means taper off completely, I would say in another way. But that looks more dramatic than saying that it'll revert to what it is normally, which is that you start from zero and then you see whether it's up or down. But this trade will be over, that you are selling it to buy US.
Okay, but the question is, what are you selling to come to India, or when are you coming back to India? Because I think one thing which has become very clear is the narrative so far was domestic investors are holding up the Indian markets. Who cares about the FIIs? I think that reality check has sort of happened. That yes, FII money is important to the Indian markets as well. So maybe the selling tapers off. When is the money coming back?
You never know these things in that sense, except that overall the world continues to grow a little bit. So every year there's more money. See, please remember, if you look at 25 years or whatever of Indian FII experience, they would have put net money into the market in 20 of those years. I think this year also, I don't know. Now they may have turned negative or maybe not. But otherwise, in the prior to this year, they were negative only in 4 years in history, which were 2008, 11, 18, and 22. So it is not normal to be taking out money because, some X% money goes to emerging markets for some pension funds or big endowment type. They're rebalancing that if US has gone up so much, then you'll take 1% off and put it into India, China, whatever. What I mean is, it is not only that a market going up keeps getting money, and actually India overall has been doing well. Plus, also understand that even if you say 60% US is doing well and they are 60% or 65% invested, they have 35% from where our weight will be 1%. So for us to be kept constant at 1 or made 1.2 doesn't need some great thing that US has to do badly. Broadly speaking, countries which are doing well get money because there is always new. Let's say the world is growing at 2.5-3% GDP. That means X% is the savings. Say it's 5% of that, whatever be the amount. But every year the world grows and every year the AUMs grow and every year flows grow. And India may not be the best country in the world to invest, but it is not so bad that you should take out of India to put in other markets other than US. And the US is not that the US market will stop going up, But it's not that our market is the only funding market that is there in the world. There's no reason for it because we may not be the best market. We are, let us say, the fifth best market now in terms of attractiveness, not in terms of size.
Yeah.
So I don't automatically mean that India is a funding market for the rest of the world. Doesn't make sense.
Okay. So at some point, FIs will come back. But let's talk about domestic money, Samir, because now you have this interesting perspective of the aspirations of Indian savers who have seen some excellent years. And now, are you sensing some concern about what is happening to their funds or their portfolios? Or is that confidence still continuing? Are you finding it difficult to manage these funds and really bring back those returns right now?
No, so right now returns will be lower than previous years, I guess. But the flows are not stopping, although we are one of the new smaller AMCs.
Yeah.
But we also get money every day from 300-400 investors. Now, all these big guys might be getting from 30,000 a day, but we get from 300-400 to 500-600 people every day coming and investing money. And out of that, some 35-40% is direct. So how did they discover us? From where did they think about us? And these are maybe from more than 400 cities or small places, whatever, they're still cities. So it is quite amazing the depth to which this has gone. And if they look at their accounts for this year, but if they look at it for calendar year, which is how I look at it, maybe because I'm not looking at the April year and they might look at it a little differently. But broadly speaking, they are up 15-20% even this year. A calendar year, at least 20% plus in our case. And therefore, I don't see that they will worry so much that in October and November, these good funds have lost, say, 3-5% or 5-6%. And I don't think it is. And anyway, today looks like a day when it seems to be at least giving back some of it, getting back some of it. So I don't think that people will be shocked because really anybody who's put in money even for 6-9 months is not below his cost. So right now, I don't think it will stop because it is not that deep. And anyway, the market and the investors are programmed right now, including me, to buy a correction. If you fail 2-3 times on buying a correction, then you don't do it. But right now, it's like the total time is about 35 or say 40-45 days in which you have lost maybe 20% or 25% of this year's gains and retaining everything else from previous years. So I don't think right now anybody is going to feel totally nervous about it. In fact, my feeling is, and my view is that as soon as the FIs stop a little bit, even if temporarily, this market will go up 3-4% and make everybody climb back saying now it is over, because that is the recent experience. And only if the recent experience fails 2-3 times, then you will try and find a new formula.
Formula, Samir, if you're sitting on cash right now, best time to actually deploy it for an Indian investor? And if so, which are the sectors or bets that you would advise?
So first of all, we have in all our funds nearly fully invested. I myself personally, over and above being a large investor in my funds, I had some cash and I invested last Friday, not this Friday, previous Friday, 3 days after, the 2 days, the day after the US guys cut interest rates. And I think from a big picture, every market is a buy, whether it is India, China, US or gold. And I bought all the four on that day also. And coming to our funds, we are 98-99% invested. In my long short fund, after this correction, my net exposure, which on average over 19 years is 63%. If I look at month and average, right now it'll be more like 78-80% net, because I am really going in with you can say all chips in for a year-end rally and for a stopping of this FII selling. But now the question is what stocks to buy. So we are not buying any stock which has disappointed this quarter, even if the stock has fallen 10%, 15%, on the basis that these things don't stop in 3-6 months. It is better to buy stocks that are doing well, even if they are up 5-7%. In the next 6-9 months, we think that there will be a shortage of very high growth names, which also we all need. And therefore, our first group, where we cumulatively have maybe 14, something 12-15%, is all these 4 platform companies, which are Zomato, Swiggy, PB Fintech, and Paytm. And rest we will buy only
Hey, Samir,
stocks
what's
which
the
are.
pecking order? What's the pecking
No, I
order
don't
of
know.
these
Pecking
4?
order. Pecking order is only Zomato is a real big one. Other three are maybe 2.5, 3% each. So together, but Zomato, because it's gone up 5, 6 times for us, or 5 times, it has become some 6%. So others will be 2.5% each. Or maybe Paytm is 3.5, 4%. That also because we made serious money on it. So, but the point is not the pecking order. The point is the concept. The concept is that there will be a shortage in the near future. And we need not for the whole portfolio, but for 10, 15, 20% of the portfolio, you need something growing 25, 30% at a sustainable rate for at least 2, 3 years. At least you can imagine that. Then whether it happens or not, we'll see. But it is very boring to buy a company in consumer staple which has disappointed and therefore fell 5%, but its earning growth will now be 4% and its valuations have gone from 55 times to 52 times or 48 times. Doesn't excite me. It didn't excite me before and it doesn't excite me now. And one reason why we are willing to play this is because in October, in my offshore hedge fund, actually I was up when the market was down 7.5%. So we are saying let's just play a second round of it and raise the net to the level that we have.
Quick question I have on that is a DMart or your new age platform companies like a Zomato or a Swiggy?
No DMart. DMart is too expensive and we've not had it after a few, maybe from May of 20, we've not had it. Because the thing is right now, as I said, we are going with the momentum of results right now. Then if that changes, we can buy, because what do you miss in the time that where the turn happens? You will miss a 7, 8% move at that day. But if that happens, then you will see for continuously that company doing well for 3, 4 years, 2 years. Look at it. We also have some loser companies. So we own Westlife. So Westlife, it disappointed one quarter. We said, no, it's okay. Then it disappointed. Then it disappointed. Now it's 7 quarters that is disappointed. And we still say, okay, we have it now. What to do? What I mean is, once you have it, you can, you sort of keep it or whatever you do. But what I mean by big picture is that I think when things do well, they go on for too long. And when things go badly, they go on for too long. And then there is one turning point. And you can't buy for that turning point, and when it suddenly has a better result or in some case a worse result, that day you will either make or lose 5, 10%, let it be. After that, you do what you want. So, but sometimes you're already in a stock and therefore you don't know, you just sort of give it more time. But there is no need to average any guy not doing well right now.
Okay.
It's just not worth it. That's what I feel.
How do you feel? So, how do you feel about a trend? And Samir, are you surprised at all with what happened to Honasa?
So, everybody says we are not supposed to talk about individual stocks, but in this case, we are not short or long. So we can say that Honasa not surprised, but trend we have not. You can say we have missed it, and now it's too late to buy all these stocks which are trading at 100 times PE or whatever.
Just want to know how you're feeling about the IPOs, Samir. I mean, NTPC Green is the latest one. Are you feeling now a little less bullish about IPOs than I think the market was viewing it 6 months ago? And any view on this particular one?
So I have broadly not been bullish on IPOs, and at least as an advice to others, because as your viewer, which is let's say the retail public, they are not going to get any unless they think that okay, they made 5,000 rupees because the retail that I don't relate that much. I'm saying in general, you don't get IPOs that are hot and good because they get oversubscribed so much. So the only IPO you get will be the one which has failed more or less. So in the end, IPOs don't make money for anybody. Even for the anchors, they don't make money. If you look at the fact that, I mean, they don't change anybody's life. I shouldn't say they don't make money. For example, even the biggest fund, let's say HDFC or all these massive funds, even if they get 50, 100 crores in an anchor and on that they make 25 crores, I don't think it changes their NAV by even 0.1%. So in the end, IPOs are, still people buy some of them. We also want some of them generally just to be in the game. But I don't think IPOs have made any difference to anybody's returns ever.
Sameer, your quick view on the PSU dividend policy that has been now revised after 8 years. How are you looking at it from an investment perspective, specifically, for the PSUs?
No, we are not looking at it because the dividends were previously also okay. Now you might have a little more, but we being growth investors don't look at it like that. On the PSUs, otherwise we used to have more before the elections, and now we have less because we sold off the railway PSUs and one bank PSU and reduced the defense, and some of our funds eliminated those stocks also on the basis that they had very massive runs for the previous 3 years. And for that to be sustained, needed continuous reinforcement by government in terms of announcements and orders and contracts and general, in some cases, like in the oil and gas, some privatization dreams, and all those got a little bit shaken up at that time. So now we have much less. Basically, we have State Bank and one or two more.
So, Sameer, just a couple of things, before we sign off this wonderful conversation with you, would you at this point invest fresh money to buy the dip, or you would wait and watch? And how important, in your view, is the outcome of the Maharashtra elections, where voting starts on 20th?
I know that election is a bit confusing, and that could move it a little bit up and down, saying, oh, the BJP has not won. So that is different, and I don't know how to anticipate it or analyze it. Otherwise, we buy every day. Every day we get money, every day we buy. We don't keep any cash because, as I said, not only not keep cash in our fund where we can do long, short and change our net much more than in a mutual fund. Our net from an average of 63 is currently, I think, 78 or something.
Right. Sameer, a quick rapid fire that we're going to do with you for the next 90 seconds. Bollywood...
90 seconds be rapid fire. That means you are asking 30 questions or what?
No. So I need you to sing one Bollywood song that best describes the market mood today.
Oh God, that is not rapid fire. I'm listening more to Badshah and all. So
You're listening to Badshah?
These days I don't see Hindi movies. They're not. I don't see that many good movies. No, I don't know.
Any song that describes the market mood.
Okay, you ask me the next question. This will go in the back of my mind.
Okay, Sameer, if you had to put money afresh, would you bet on Trump's America right now or China's resurgence? Of course, India is the evergreen bet, but between the two.
So as I said, I bought both on the assumption that Trump will not really hike tariffs across the board. If you see all the fellows that they are considering for Treasury Secretary, they're all finance guys, whether the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald or that Apollo founder Mark Rowan or that hedge fund manager, that George Soros' CIO, what is his name, Besant, and there was another guy. So all these guys are actually from the finance field and investments field, and they would also know how far you can go. So I think China will not be that bad. But currently, pure momentum, it's US, but both are good, I think.
Okay. Large caps or small caps right now, and would banks top your list?
Large caps and banks.
Which bank? Private, public? Which is your top banking pick right now?
HDFC Bank.
Okay, good and solid. What about IT? Will IT go up or down in Trump's Raj?
Go up. Because the thing is, IT is more to do with US companies doing well and their confidence in investing in technology and other things. The fact that you get your green card or not doesn't really matter. It matters to that poor individual and his life being uncertain. But you know how markets work. Markets don't care whether you went on H1 or you did it in India or you went there and got a green card or you got a visa for your wife. All these things are individual stories, not for the way the stock markets work or the corporate sector works. So in the end, I think if the US guys are doing well, that is US companies, potential clients, actual clients, then you will do well.
Right. So, Samir, that's going to be an interesting one, but we're going to still wonder what's that song going to be that was going to relate with the markets as well. And probably, I think, is it going to be time for people to go for holidays as well, and how Europe is going to pan out for you? So that's Samir Arora, founder and fund manager at Helios Capital. Tamanna, clearly, you know, money is expected to come back to the Indian markets. How and when is the key now, and how that money is going to pan out, because another upside from here on is what the investors are going to wait for.
What I found very interesting is, Samir got away with not singing a song for you, but what I found very interesting is Samir Arora saying that in the couple of days after the Fed cut, he was completely invested.
Absolutely, and he only has almost 95 to 99% invested.
Yeah, absolutely. So great conversation there with Samir Arora. That's all the time we have on Profit Insights. Thank you so much for watching.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Wall Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with. What matters worldwide is now in the palm of your hands. Get ready to seize the day and maximize your financial potential. Stay ahead of the curve with all you need to know on NDTV Profit.
Well, thanks for tuning into this very special conversation on Talking Point as we made a norm. We talked to the think tank of Citi Research on what their verdict about the quarterly numbers are, and no different this time as we welcome in the team Surendra Goyal, Head of India Research at Citi, and of course tracks technology amongst other things very closely. Rashi Chopra, Director of India Metals and Cement. Kunal Shah, Director of India Banks and Financials, and Saurabh Handa, Director, India Oil and Gas and Telecom. Both, all of you, rather, thank you so much for joining in. Great seeing all of you. Rashi, good seeing you after a while. But Surendra, is this earnings season, we know it's been a weak earnings season. Was it as bad as you anticipated, or was it worse?
Yeah, so a few things there. Okay, so like when we put out this note midway through, what we had highlighted is while the reported numbers at aggregate level were below expectations, but if you took out oil marketing companies, for example, then the numbers were broadly in line to slightly better. So I think it's been a quarter like that where certain segments of the market have pulled down overall earnings. Having said that, I think where we have been getting the most number of investor questions, and this is like particularly what people's expectations were going into the quarter in context of that. One has been consumption, because across staples, discretionary numbers have generally been weak. So what has suddenly happened on the urban side? Why is there so much weakness? That's one of the most common questions through the last 15-20 days. And secondly, asset quality increasingly is becoming a topic of discussion. Although the large banks, most of them had numbers pretty decent, but there are certain companies, and Kunal is here, he can talk more about it, where we did see some weakness. So those are the two most common discussion points. At an aggregate level, the numbers are a little weak, but that's again being pulled down by certain parts of the market.
Okay, so two questions rolled into one. I'll talk about financials and the asset quality with Kunal, but two questions rolled into one. One, do you see a pickup of, so yes, we'll probably see a pickup in quarter 3. Is it going to be a large pickup in the second half, or is it difficult to call that right now? And part 2, what is ailing this weakness in what is ailing this consumption bucket?
Yeah. So we should see some pickup. We are not really expecting a large pickup. So even entering the year, our numbers were below consensus for Nifty, which we publish regularly. And through the last, say, 7-8 months, we have been 2-3% below consensus. So to that extent, we were always a little more cautious. And even now, it doesn't look like a big recovery when you look at all the drivers that you are thinking about from a earnings perspective. So overall, we think that from at a Nifty level, the earnings growth for this year is more mid to high single digits. Okay, and that's what the team is predicting bottom up for the Nifty companies. On consumption, I think rural, while it's improving, okay, gradually, the surprise really came on the urban side. And again, there are obviously multiple reasons, but one of the most common reasons which a few companies kind of discussed on their earnings call is that the metros have actually done worse, and possibly because some of the things that impact the urban mass consumer there, from an inflation perspective, the impact is a lot more than what the headline inflation would suggest. So I think it's the impact of inflation which has kind of impacted urban consumption more, and that is where we saw a very sharp slowdown. In fact, if you look at commentaries of most of these companies, rural is steady to improving, while urban is where the deceleration happened. So I think that is where the surprise came. And discretionary has been weak for a while. So we really did not see any change in trend there, because jewelry has been doing well, jewelry continued to do well. Some of very few players driven by market share gains have been doing well, they continue to do well. Rest of the discretionary space has been tough for a while now.
Okay, quick 30-second answer though. Is this inflation impact transitory? What's your sense? Does it kind of show up in quarter 3 again? Or?
So I think you'll have to keep a few things in mind. It's obviously there is an inflation impact, and like we'll really need to see, very difficult to say it's transitory or not. But I think what is also important to keep in mind is last year, same quarter, the base number for urban was also decent. Okay, so that also from a YOY perspective would have played on the numbers. So I think that should gradually ease as we go into next year. Okay, from a impact perspective, it's always difficult to call how transitory it is.
Okay, well, I want to talk about tech as well, but so many other things to talk about. The asset quality on banks and metals, there's a recent development over the weekend, as also in oil and gas, so much to talk about. Kunal, I'll go in this order. He spoke about how the asset quality question has become the key talking point, and we can understand why. 2 or 3 banks doing so well, the rest not so. So what's your sense of that, and will it have a further impact on how the stocks behave as well?
So definitely asset quality has taken the center stage, and if we look at it in terms of the product segments, it has been more so with respect to the unsecured lending, and within unsecured it has been towards the microfinance and credit card in particular. So wherever the exposure has been higher to these 2 segments, we have seen banks reporting a higher asset quality stress. In terms of the impact, I think given that the flow into SMA buckets in these 2 product segments have been higher, there could be a spillover effect in Q3 as well. And most of the management have already indicated that you should not expect maybe it to subside very soon. Maybe second half could be better, but that will be more in 4Q rather than 3Q. So in terms of the stock price reaction, obviously, since there is a spillover into Q3, into the next quarter, I think there is pressure on the stocks which are exposed highly to these 2 particular segments.
Okay, so in which case, I mean, I was trying to think of banks which actually did reasonably okay on asset quality. ICICI Bank, of course, stood out. You could argue HDFC Bank kind of mixed, but maybe slightly better than what a lot of other people anticipated. Does the market now again start rewarding some of the asset quality performing banks a lot more than some of the others? Is that your pecking order as well?
Definitely. So now the entire verbatim is also shift away from growth and margins towards asset quality. Till now, people were looking at in terms of how the growth behaves. And as you mentioned, like one of the bank was really lagging in terms of the growth, but it is standing out in terms of asset quality and seems to be outperforming as well in last 2 to 3 odd months. So given maybe now growth and margins being largely factored into the estimates, to that extent, now it's like more the focus has been on the asset quality, and that's the reason the players who are doing relatively better on the asset quality side and who have outperformed. I think particularly with respect to the slippage and the credit cost and outlook also seems to be better. They should outperform, and that's what our pick has been. So we have ICICI and HDFC as a part of our top picks.
As your top ideas. Okay, lots more to talk about. I would love to talk about the NBFC space as well. But Rashid, good talking to you after a while. Thanks for joining in, and would love to understand. I mean, I don't envy your job. China just keeps you very, very busy, I'm sure, as also over the weekend.
Yeah.
So can I start off with the non-earnings part first? What do you think of the move that has been done? Because most of China's bazookas are looking like water pistols at the end of it. Is this slightly different in that and sustaining, if you will, this rebate tax?
So our global team doesn't think so, in the sense that, their view is that obviously this gives you that sort of, there's going to be an LME upside on account of this whole withdrawal. But again, the focus goes back to what Trump does. So it's basically a contradiction. If you look at, maybe our sort of views 2 months back, right? We had like a sort of a neutralish to bullish view on aluminium, zinc more neutralish. And now when you actually read, like our commentary from our team, the general thought process is everything is very uncertain. Whatever Trump is going to do and how China reacts to it and when China and whether China reacts to it becomes the big question mark. So it's literally more to be sort of neutralish on the space at this point in time than actually being, sort of invested in it.
On actual commodities, you mean, right?
Commodities,
yeah.
Yes.
So therefore, the derivative of that would be, what's your view on the Indian commodity stocks? Back on results and back on the back of this piece that you just spoke about.
So we've been negative, particularly on the steel space, and on the non-ferrous space, we have a buy on Vedanta for company-specific reasons, which I'll just talk about. On the steel space, what we've been highlighting is that number one, like you said, the China stimulus has been disappointing on a continuous basis, right? Property starts are down more than 20%, China demand is down more than 5-6%. So it's very hard to figure out what is really going to kind of change the game for steel in China, and therefore as a derivative, what happens to India. And the Indian equities, like the Indian steel equities are literally like at 2.5 times the Chinese valuations, which, one can argue that India is a growing market, but at the end of the day, we're not isolated or insulated from the Chinese exports, right?
But we are growing capacities, right?
We're growing, so I was just going to come to that in a second. So I'm saying that for the first point is that on the, China is always going to export, or China, Japan, Korea, they all export into India, right? So at any point in time, we're always going to be compared to the import parity price. So therefore that growth, there may be a little bit of a growth angle, but you can't, I'm not sure if 2 times, 2x, like 10 times, 11 times EV EBITDA multiples are kind of warranted in that sense. So that's like the nearer term view that even if there's a surprise stimulus, right, I don't know how that swings the Indian equities. Second, to your point, that capacity is getting added, which while it adds to the growth angle on the positive side, on the scary side, it is on the flat product side, demand will have to grow at about 10% to absorb that supply in the next 2-3 years. And that's not something that we've seen in the last few years. So then what will happen is, if that doesn't happen, then the Indian companies will actually have to start exporting out, which is not the most lucrative option for them. So whichever way we look at it, it's getting a little bit difficult to get positive on the steel equities. On the non-ferrous side, like I was mentioning, like general view is to kind of stay away from the commodities at this point in time. But the Vedanta buy is more company specific. They have a whole restructuring coming. They will deleverage well. There is a good dividend yield story. So that's the only one we're kind of supportive of at this point in time.
So it's a sum of parts story that you're playing because of a demerger or there's
restructuring. There's whole restructuring that's going to happen, and they've done a really good job at deleveraging at the parent level. And then there's a good dividend yield story that kind of comes through it. So unless there's a massive collapse in the commodity prices, that of course will, that'll go wrong for Vedanta. But other than that, that's fine.
Okay, I'd love to talk about cement as well in a moment, but Saurabh, bring you in first on the here and now, and which is the news. This administered gas price allocation gashes that are happening, and it's almost coming without any forewarning, if you will. What kind of an earnings impact? More importantly, what kind of a multiple impact does a move or a set of moves like this have on the CGDs?
Right. So See, it's fairly obvious that it could impact the margins and the earnings for these companies. The extent will obviously depend on how much they can pass through in terms of CNG price hikes. So we do expect there will be some price hikes happening. We haven't seen any since the last cut that happened in October. So we think it's a matter of time. So I think the near-term impact is sort of fairly obvious. It's kind of reflected in the way the stocks have reacted. I would probably just take a step back and try to look at things from a slightly medium to longer term perspective. The one thing that this could do is lead to consolidation in the sector. So clearly some of the listed players are well entrenched. So even though their margins could take a hit, but these are still strong companies with cash-rich balance sheets. Whereas some of the newer players could potentially face bigger challenges. And then we could potentially see an acceleration of consolidation where these guys could then use their cash for geographical opportunities. So that's one thing I think definitely worth looking at. The second is, so far the government's stance on pursuing usage of gas and pushing its use in the economy hasn't really changed. So a lot of senior government officials, the oil minister, etc., constantly make statements that they are very supportive of pushing the use of natural gas in the economy. And that in some ways then potentially could lead to, again, these companies benefiting from a longer term perspective. There is a constant talk of bringing gas under GST. If this happens over the next 1 to 2 years, then again, these companies could be better placed. So we think beyond the here and the now, if one takes a slightly medium term perspective, then the stocks have potentially come down to reasonable valuations where for long-term investors, they could be worth looking at. How much of a structural derating could happen? Part of it has already happened. Stocks like IGL used to trade at 20, 25 times. They were at 13 times right now ahead of today's correction. So
20% fall as we speak.
Yeah, so a lot of that derating has already happened. So the key to ask is after this 20% fall, what next?
Okay.
So I think in the near term, obviously we have to wait for the dust to settle, see what happens on, on things like price hikes, etc. But yeah, that's how we are looking at things.
So Saurabh, would it be fair to say that you assume that maybe there could be now, if there is to be a correction, it could be a time correction, not as much a severe price correction, because both valuations and the prices have compressed quite significantly in the recent times?
Potentially. So now we obviously need to see what further news flow can happen. I mean, is this like a monthly thing? Can there be another cut happening next month? But the other things are still very positive. The volume growth is phenomenal. You've probably read a lot about how OEMs are pushing CNG in their portfolio, right? CNG sales were very strong in the month of October compared to, say, the overall category. And the other thing is longer term investors whom we've often spoken with, the one pushback we've always got on these stocks is, but they rely so much on subsidized gas. What happens if that goes away? Now, it's almost come to that situation. So can this prompt some of those guys who were on the sidelines to then, re-enter? So I think these are some of the questions we'll need to address. But yes, for now, potentially, we need to wait for the dust to settle in the short term at least.
But a time correction, not necessarily too severe a price correction here on. That would be a summation. Okay, I'd love to talk about OMC's result because I've read your note on that, and one wonders, despite the crude price fall, why is it the stocks haven't performed? So I'll come to that in a moment. But the other big boy, aside of banks, of course, and information technology, the views spread right down the middle out there, Surendra. Some people are very constructive, some people are not. And the bulls say that now, the big event that we were waiting for, which is the election is out of the way, there will be clarity, people will invest, and orders will come in. What's your sense? Yeah. I believe you've been negative thus far.
Yes. So that's right. We have been cautious on the space. And cautious. I don't think it's one thing which has been impacting IT spending. Okay, so like investors used to say that it's all about rate cuts. Then the rate cuts started, growth did not recover, people started arguing it's because of US elections. So it's a bit of a moving target. And our view is that it's not one event driven IT spending. If you look at some of the issues which Indian IT has been facing, firstly from a share gain perspective, the pace of share gain has slowed down. Okay, and it's not because of anything that they are doing wrong. The penetration across segments of the market has gone up materially. The second thing is the whole global capability center debate. we believe that it does kind of chip away a little bit of share at the margin. And thirdly, from a spending perspective globally, it just pivoted towards Gen AI. Okay, and at this stage, Gen AI spending is more in other areas. So there are multiple things which are impacting spending beside the macro. Now, if you think about what has happened in the last 1 month, right, the US 10-year is up 80, 90 basis points, right? And people were very bullish on rate cuts. Now nobody is talking about it. So we still think that there are it's going to be very mixed. And that's the reason we are forecasting a very modest recovery, but slow recovery. So what we have been writing in our notes, it's bottomed out. It bottomed out in the March-June quarter itself. But it's a very slow recovery, and that is where the numbers just keep on disappointing because the market goes ahead of itself. People are forecasting a swift recovery, and then the numbers don't come out. Even in this quarter, the numbers across the board, a couple of companies, smaller companies might be taking share. But at a broader sector level, the numbers were still on the weaker side for a lot of players. And more importantly, the deal flow numbers were pretty weak across almost all the companies. So I don't think there is enough visibility to really come out and say that there is a big recovery coming. It still feels like a very modest recovery. And one has to keep in mind that the stocks are also trading at pretty much 15-year high value, or very close to 15-year high valuations, right? Barring that post-COVID period. Right now, the sector is 30, 31 times. The peak was 31, 32 times. Otherwise, these stocks have not traded at these levels, at least in the last 15 years. Right. So when you put it, this entire thing in the mix, I don't think it's that easy to be positive on the sector.
Okay, but you are selective. You're very bottom up. I believe you're mid-size. If I'm not wrong, Coforge, I may be wrong here. Yeah. But those are a few names that
I think the challenge that we are facing is that some of the stocks which are doing well are very richly priced also. Right? So 40, 50 times earnings is the multiple which is already there on those stocks. So what we are taking is a view based on the growth outlook as well as where the valuations stack up. So that's a relative view. So within the sector, Infosys and HCL Tech are the names that we like on a relative basis compared to the others. But overall, I would still say that we are quite cautious to negative on the sector.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that view. Rashi, I'd love to come to you on cement very quickly. A quarter which teaches you stuff at best, because otherwise it seemed a really forgetful quarter. Though, my question though is also two-part, very quickly here. Some of the southern exposed companies, because of the infra spend happening there, could they benefit even if the sector at large doesn't?
I wouldn't isolate them in entirety, because one is that, obviously it's an oversupplied market, right? The second is that you've seen a lot of this M&A happening in the southern market as well, where capacity utilizations are not necessarily at rated levels or high levels, right? So what's happening is, and I think that sort of works, or this narrative works for the entire region, all the regions in the country, is that because either the larger players are adding capacity or they're doing M&A, particularly in the south, they will want to make sure that the material gets absorbed, right? So even if there is some sort of benefit on the demand growth side, I don't necessarily think it translates into price growth immediately. So
avoid per se. No need to go out and buy.
No, we don't. On cement, actually, our view is that despite having a sort of a negative or sort of a muted view on pricing, we actually have buys on quite a few of the stocks, and the thought process is that focus on stocks that offer growth and those that offer some cost benefit.
So which are these?
Because of the just one more second, just on the cost side, it's not necessary that they will have to pass on the cost benefit if demand growth is adequate enough to keep utilization levels where they are. So that's the thesis over here, because one can always question that if they're getting cost benefit, why don't they have to cut prices further? So the thought there is that demand is not going to completely collapse, and so utilization should be all right. We have buys on Ultratech, we have buys on ACC, Grasim, Shree, and we upgraded Ramco very recently with the results. South-based player again, but that was again, the thesis was not so much on pricing, it was more to do with how well they manage their cost structures, in a muted demand environment and pricing environment.
Noted. Thanks for that. Okay, last two questions, out of time completely, but Saurabh, can't not talk about OMCs. So first to you, and then I'll wrap with Kunal. But oil marketing companies, despite crude prices behaving very well, we haven't seen the stocks perform. I mean, at some point of time, the earnings have to come up, because we haven't seen price action or cuts out there as well from the government side. So why is it that the sector is not performing?
So the first reason, obviously, 2Q earnings were quite bad. And in fact, following those 2Q earnings, the point we were trying to make was some of the factors are non-recurring. And you should see a pretty significant pickup in earnings in Q3 and Q4. So you had these one-off inventory losses, which are unlikely to sustain. You've seen a slight pickup in refining margins. There has been this sort of constant overhang that there'll be a fuel price cut coming ahead of some state elections. That hasn't happened. So our view is that there is no immediate need, at least for a very sharp fuel price cut, which means therefore that these companies may be able to make slightly above normative marketing margins in the short term, say in Q3. So we are quite positive. In fact, we have put out a catalyst watch on HPCL as well, basically saying that there should be an earnings rebound happening. And the last thing is on LPG, these companies have been reporting under recoveries, which they are having to route through the P&L, which is optically making earnings look a bit lower. And as and when the government announces some sort of a subsidy, which they usually do for LPG, given it's a controlled product, that can also optically boost your earnings. So we are positive. Maybe the market is waiting for this one sort of good quarter to play out. And then start rewarding these companies, because on a dividend yield basis, they start looking very attractive.
Okay. Kunal, final question. In banks, one draw, the non-banking names, what has stood out for you in this quarter and the commentary?
So when we look at it at NBFCs, in fact, as I mentioned, in banks, it was purely asset quality compared to that of growth and margins. In NBFCs, we need to monitor all three levers, growth, margins, as well as asset quality. We saw RBI sounding slightly uncomfortable with exponential growth in some of the even secured lenders. Plus, margin trajectory would depend in terms of the rate action. And asset quality, again, over there, it seems to be more dominated in the unsecured space. So at least in terms of the commentary, what surprised positively is banks still continuing with their growth guidance. I don't think any of them have yet revised the growth guidance down, which was quite surprising, because we thought that maybe if banks lending to NBFCs is coming off and RBI is slightly uncomfortable, we would see slightly lower target, which has not come through. And again, in terms of the margins, I think everyone mentioned like cost of funds has almost peaked, and now you should start to see the benefits in margin to flow through in the coming quarters. So these two were the positive guidance. And on the negative side, it was particularly on the asset quality front, wherein we saw the upward revision in the credit cost by a few of the NBFCs, and it might continue for a quarter or two. So that was on the negative side.
Got it. Well, a lot to talk more. We haven't spoken about Zomato, Swiggy, and so much more. And the new kids on the block as well. Not kids really, but we're out of time completely. So all of you, thank you so much for taking the time out and being with us today on the show. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And viewers, thanks for tuning into this very special conversation with the City Think Tank.
Co-presented by Wellspun World.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Lord Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with, What matters worldwide is now in the palm of your hands. Get ready to seize the day and maximize your financial potential. Stay ahead of the curve with all you need to know on NDTV Profit.
Listen to the voices of reason as they talk about corporate health and investing principles with me, Neeraj Shah, on my show, Talking Point.
Bro, what are you doing?
I'm trading FNOs.
So, have you made any money?
Oh, it's simple. If you think the market is moving upwards, just buy Nifty call option. But if you think the market could slide downwards,
Simplifying futures and options trading.
Don't worry about the future.
We've got your options covered.
Futures and options strategy that will help you move with the tide.
An unmissable show.
If you want to be in the money.
When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Wall Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with. What?
Welcome to this special show on NDTV Profit. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. Now, exit polls are fraught with danger. So while this show is to talk about the many exit polls which are out for the state elections of Jharkhand and Maharashtra, and we will go through it, we will give you the poll of polls. Remember, they come with a huge disclaimer. Exit polls have been proven wrong more than right for the last few major elections, starting from the Lok Sabha, Haryana polls, let me also count the US elections, and now Maharashtra and Jharkhand, so which is why we won't take the risk of saying that these are the final numbers. But this is the poll of poll numbers we have right now from all major polls. It's looking like the Mahayuti could get a majority in this election. But let's talk a bit about the election in Maharashtra. It's an election that has got even the most jaded and veteran political pundits floundering. It's a no-holds-barred, do-or-die battle in Maharashtra as one political drama after another unfolded over the past 5 years. Alliances changed shapes multiple times, actually very tough to track. Chief ministers were forced to resign and parties were splintered into many factions. Fresh from a surprise win in Haryana, the BJP is holding to retain power along with partners Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena and Ajit Pawar's NCP. Excited by the results of the Lok Sabha elections earlier this year, in which they won double the seats of the Mahayuti, the opposition alliance called the Mahavikas Aghadi in Maharashtra is banking on anti-incumbency and sympathy for the betrayal, as they call it, of Uddhav Thackeray and Sharad Pawar. So if you were a writer of a fictional story, you'd find it difficult to write this kind of a story, where there is uncle, nephew on one side, there is a complete split. The Shiv Sena is no longer with a Thackeray, they have a different faction. It's all sorts of drama going on. So which is why it's very difficult but very exciting to see what happens in Maharashtra. difficult to predict. Let's talk a bit about Jharkhand. The Congress and the Hemant Soren-led Jharkhand Mukti Morcha are fighting to hold on to power. This after Hemant Soren went to jail for 5 months over an alleged land scam and was out on bail barely 4 months ago. The hot issue picked up by the NDA here is that of illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. A provocative advertisement by the BJP was ordered to be taken down by the Election Commission. So it's in a sense BJP versus opposition fight in both states, which will have some impact on how the centre's hold is also perceived. This is why this is important. And also look at the kind of issues that have been talked about. I think the other important thing to look at in these sets of elections is how freebies have become front and center. Now call it freebies, call it doles, call it whatever you may, but the fact is that telling voters that they will get cash handouts at a regular interval has become a huge push for every political party. Look at the latest poll of polls numbers that we're bringing you. So the Mahayuti or the NDA in Maharashtra could get 154 seats. Remember, 145 is the halfway mark. The Mahavikas Aghadi or the India Alliance could get 122. The others are 12. This come, of course, with their set of corrections that could take place. So which means there is a case you could see a hung assembly as well. But as of now, the Mahayuti seems to have an edge. As far as Jharkhand is concerned, the UPA is pipped to get 38, the NDA 29, and others are pipped to get 4 from a total of 81 seats. The figure I'm seeing there is 39, but here it's 29. So we'll have to wait and see how that really pans out. But meanwhile, let's talk about what the big issues are in this election. Anand Mishra, political editor of The Frontline, with us on the show. Purnima Joshi is with us. She's the Delhi Bureau Chief of the Hindu Business Line. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Let's get the political view and the political pundit view first. Purnima, I'll come to you. As you're looking at what's happening in the Maharashtra elections, is it becoming now an issue or a fight for survival for key political leaders? At the end of this, by Saturday evening, we'll know what the future holds, for example, for an Uddhav Thackeray, a Sharad Pawar, an Eknath Shinde, an Ajit Pawar, even a Devendra Fadnavis. This is a crucial election for them on a personal level, isn't it?
Yeah, so, if they don't, this is the first election they're fighting after the parties have been, first assembly election, that is, both Sharad Pawar and Uddhav Thackeray, after their parties have been split. So, Sharad Pawar, if you look at him, he's contesting 87 or so odd seats. And in this election, you see even his wife campaigning, his daughter campaigning, the entire family behind him, and he himself is addressing rallies across. So if you travel to Marathwada or Western Maharashtra, like I did, you see a different picture in a city like Pune, where the BJP is quite strong. But you step out. Even in a place like Baramati, where Ajit Pawar himself is contesting against the nephew, you see a major contest there. So I also saw a sort of a urban-rural divide in Maharashtra, where the urban issues are different from the rural areas, particularly in areas like Marathwada and Vidarbha, where you can sense the farm rural distress. There is a lot of anger I saw on the ground on issues like soya bean prices, which have fallen, and the procurement is not happening. And across 12 districts of Vidarbha and Marathwada, this is a very, very big issue. Then there have been a lot of lapses by the state government, which delayed crushing of the sugarcane season, because of which about 12 lakh workers who are engaged in sugarcane pressing. And I would have you know that these are workers largely from the community of Gopinath Munde and Pankaja Munde, who framed the sort of largely OBC vote bank of the BJP. They have migrated out of the state to Karnataka, where sugarcane pressing is actually happening right now. So these were cotton prices again was an issue. So these were issues in the rural areas. Whereas you see in urban pockets like Pune or even in Bombay, there's a lot of money, muscle, Hindutva, all of that.
Purnima, are you feeling confident from what your reporters are telling you, what you've seen on the ground, on whether there's a clear mandate that we'll see on the 23rd, or is it closer than people think?
One can never be sure about Maharashtra. I will not make a prediction about Maharashtra because it's a huge state, and I feel that all the 288 constituencies are being fought on different candidate muscle, different issues. You have these 5-6 regions. Bombay with its 36 seats has very different issues in each pocket. You have a constituency like Dharavi, where people are talking about the Adani redevelopment project and how it's going to impact. But if you go to a constituency like Kolaba,